Ah, thank you. Hello, everybody. This is Oakwalker. I am here with my best friend Stronghorse, and we are Earth Medicine for the Soul, the spodcast. No, we'll just be a podcast today on shamanic topics and just basic stories of how we got where we are and what started us off and what happened on the way. We started in our last session a really interesting topic that was about how, when we're doing healing and things with each other, that there's a difference between the symptom of a thing and the cause of a thing, and that we want to try and root or winnow down to the root causes of stuff. I'm going to throw that back over to Frank because he's better at introducing these things than I am, and then we'll fill in as we go. I'll be the color man. Okay.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Welcome to the Shamanic Sportscast.
Right.
Monday afternoon shamanic sports arena. So what it's interesting, what came to me, I guess, after prior to this us coming on for this recording is that we talked just a little bit about how, you know, how amazing is the level of gaslighting that's gone on the planet for
10,000
really
years.
thousands of years. Yeah, I mean it's just mind-boggling, and we could get into that and talk about it from now till the cows come home. But we can't. I remember somebody told me one time that they worked for this newspaper and there was the big sign over the editor's office said, "If it bleeds, it leads," which which gave you some idea what they were focused on. I
Right.
mean, and so there's just been this an addiction. It's actually addiction to corporate profit, but corporate profit is based upon feeding the people negative bullshit, and that's
Yeah.
because it stimulates them to a degree that gets them excited, and it gets them engaged,
Yeah.
and that addictive paradigm
Of
is
terror.
a
Right.
terror on the human soul. It
Yep.
is a
Terror
terror,
and the associated passion and grief and
literally,
outrage. What's the word I'm looking
literally.
for? That word that
Yeah,
we don't
and it
have right
just,
now.
and it robs us of our authenticity,
Hmm.
because if you're completely addicted to something, it's impossible for you to be authentic. I mean, it is,
Hmm.
and no one can tell you really how to be authentic. That's something that you have to figure out for yourself,
Right, because
because
it's whose authenticity is it?
yeah, I mean, your authentic self and my authentic self don't have to be the same.
Hmm.
They can be completely different. But your truth. I mean, we're going to find a lot of our truths merge. Because we're both coming from the same place, different paths, but basically we're both coming from the same place,
Yeah.
and we want to see it go to the same place. We want to see people walking away from this podcast and going, that sounds. I may have to try this out. Maybe that sounds like there may be some. And so I think for us to do that is we need to promote with a real optimistic attitude that it's possible for you to extract yourself out of the gaslighting, out of the addictions, out of the bullshit, negative bullshit that is keeping us distracted from what our truth and our authenticity really is. Now, you
Hmm.
and I both know that if you want to find it, it's just like that example you gave in the last session. Go sit out in nature and just listen for the farthest noise that you can pick up on, and focus on that. And what that does is it gets you out of yourself.
Yes.
It takes you out of yourself so that all of those anxieties and all of those things that are created by the gaslighters, by the negativity, by the chaos, can be swept aside, and
Hmm.
then your true self is still there.
Hmm.
And again, and I use this example again over and over because I think it's really important. It's You have to look at it from the standpoint of a disciplined athlete. You have to look at it from the standpoint of, this is not, I'm not going to be insulted if somebody tells me you're not authentic. I'm going to look at it in terms of, well, what does that mean? And for me to delve into that, I've got to be disciplined, and I've got to understand that maybe there's something other than I haven't been completely consciously aware of about myself that I need to explore. And that's, when we started this whole thing out, we went into the shadow work.
Hmm.
We talked about how important that is. And and that really is sort of the key of a shamanic path, or really any spiritual path, is look, you have to deal with these things that are you're choosing to entertain yourself with. Entertainment is probably the biggest, I don't even know what to call it, but we seek out artificial stimulus to entertain ourselves with
It's a
because we don't know
distraction.
what to do. Yeah,
Hmm.
distract ourselves because we don't know what to do with the authentic stuff. And so we're trying to get across here is like, look, if you allow yourself and if you'll discipline yourself to open yourself up to the grandmother earth, to God, to the creator, to Jesus, however you choose to do that,
Hmm.
open yourself up, become disciplined, and just, don't do it from some dogmatic tradition that is telling you, well, follow this and do that and be moral and do this. All of that is just labeling, man.
Hmm.
All that is packaging, you know,
Yeah.
and it really is. And so, unless you can really open yourself up to your authenticity, you can't make that solid, strong, intimate connection. And what I'm referring to in that is a spirit to spirit conscious
Yes.
awareness connective link, and the all of the gaslighting is the very nature of the gaslighting has been to distract us away from our spirit. Because I'm going to tell you right now, the people in this group that I talked about last time, the
Uh-huh.
gaslighters, the thing that they fear the most is people figuring out how much power they really have at their disposal. If you
From their authentic selves.
from their authentic self. If you
Exactly.
open yourself up to that authenticity and all of a sudden you start finding your power, and this stuff starts looking like the dumbest game you could possibly play, because the attraction to this and what it does for your passion and for your sense of discovery and for your sense of adventure and for your sense of who you really are as a servant to something much larger than yourself
Hmm.
that is responding to you. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that.
No. And there's no more center of peace than that person who's not being buffeted about by the winds of other people's attitudes, egocentricities, blah, 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 blah. There's a great, and I can't remember what it is, but even in Jesus's teachings, he talks about don't be don't be swayed by don't be easily swayed by the winds, but anchor yourself in the ways of God. And that's something that you don't just like wake up one day and go, okay, I'm anchored now. Thanks. Cool. Thanks, Lord. Bye. Um, I
You're
can't tell
right.
you how
That's
many
exactly.
people have come to me and they said, I've been doing this for so long and I'm not getting anything. And then I'll see them a week or a month later and they go, dude, I got it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it reminds me of this
Yeah.
one time when I already had it, and I was doing really, really well. And but I went to see this one chiropractor one day, and he just he said, I just want to give you one final treatment before you go. And he just put his hands on my arm and he just held me there. He held me there. And I was starting to get restless and I was starting to, well, this isn't working. Come on, what is this? What are you doing? You know? And I'm going through like with your running, all the things in your head, going, well, this is stupid. This isn't working. And then I just went, well, all right, he'll be done soon. And I just finally relaxed into it. And it was like, boom. Oh, there's peace at the center of this. And there are so many different exercises that if you just stick with it and give it an opportunity and strive to learn to listen, that it will pay off in so many ways because the people are going to call it your inner voice. The still small voice is what the Apostle Paul called it. That inner being, that inner knowing, you need to practice listening to it, and that is a
Yeah,
discipline.
and there you go. I mean, and I don't know why this story came up that while you were talking, but we oftentimes we'll call that holding the space. You
Uh-huh.
know, like you've got to hold your space. And so I'm going to share the story with you because it's kind of funny. I was actually in a place called the Stonely in Dallas one time, and it was like a bar restaurant, and so I went up and some guy had the pool table, and I asked him if he wanted to play a game. He said sure, and so we started playing a game of pool, and he started witnessing to me. He says, have you have you accepted Jesus Christ? And I says, yeah, I like him. I talk to him whenever, we talk whenever we can. He said, what do you mean? I said, well,
Wait, what? You
I do
talk to
healing. Yeah, I do healing. Yeah, I do healing work like Jesus did. He goes, what are you talking about? What do you mean by that? And I says, well, Jesus said, greater works than I must you do, right? And the guy says, well, yeah, but he said that to his apprentices. And I looked at him, I says, well, are you one of his apprentices?
him?
And the guy turned pale and he just put his pool cue down and just walked out of the bar. Oh God, I laughed. So I laughed. And I wasn't trying to be a jerk about it. I was just saying,
Uh-huh.
here's for my, yeah, I'm totally with the program. Here's how deep I am into it.
Uh-huh.
And so I was holding my space with it. And he couldn't deal with that. He just couldn't handle it because he'd been taught like nobody else knows this and you've got to teach them and you need to witness
Yep.
to them. And if you witness to them, then you'll be accepted by Jesus Christ. And
Right. And you'll
I'm not going
gather
to
up
call
your
that a gaslight, but
treasures.
it's pretty close.
Oh no,
Huh?
it totally is. And I used to, so I've been baptized into two different Christian denominations in in this long journey of my soul's growth in this lifetime. And I used to I used to come head to head with that, like you've got to go and witness what our pastor just said. You have to share that so that you can go out and gather up your treasures in heaven so that you can have a bigger mansion in heaven, that you're going to have a better house than other people. Now, if that isn't the most egocentric thing I've ever heard, first of all, that you have to feed your pastor's ego because what he says goes. That's just absolute gaslighting. And second of
Right.
all, that here comes now this glorification of wealth all over again, that you need to accumulate more than another person, when in fact, in Christianity, the less materialistic you are, the more capable you are of spreading love and healing. And it is the lack of ego that allows you to channel Creator better or more thoroughly or more purely with greater intensity than it is to be that guy who's got to be always right all the time. And that's where we get the haters, the evangelical haters, and the politicians who want to control your life and make it so that you have to live your Christian path the way they say you do. And that is ego. And I cannot resolve the ego and the Christ consciousness in my own soul. I have never been able to do it, and it is a totally non-functional attempt at peace.
Well, like Blackout says, you have to become the hollow bone.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and there's no hollow bone about those guys at all. you
Right?
know, and and they want to fill you up with what they're full of.
Yeah. They're the
And,
clanging
and
cymbals.
yeah, and I'm like, man, God bless you. I know you're going to probably learn your lesson somehow, someday, one way or the other. But I'm gonna hold my space with what I got because I find it to be more authentic and more real and more valuable
Mhm.
than what you're talking about. And I'd love to share that with you. And if you want to learn it, that's fine. But I'm not going to push it on you.
Right.
I'm not going to. I mean, because if you're not ready, you're not ready.
Yeah.
You're
It's,
just not. And so my God, there's no way that I can convince you of anything.
mhm.
Not in this lifetime, probably in the next four lifetimes. I mean, who knows? But
Right.
what I do want to say again and reemphasize, and I think both of us need to kind of figure a way to focus on this. I think that the environment is going to be shifting dramatically over the next months and years. I mean, even if you
Mm.
look at just the age of Aquarius coming in. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not an astronomer. I totally don't get astrology at all, but the environment and what's going on is changing dramatically.
Mhm.
And for the people who can't change, can't accept change, they're having a hard time. They really
Yeah.
are. And so they're looking for something to blame or something to hit out at because they're really anxious inside. They've
Terrified.
got this internal conflict in them that they can't resolve because what's happening to them is just not work. It's not working out.
Mhm.
And they're starting to see that more and more and more. And I think we're gonna. I mean, you and I know what the mirror reflection looks like.
Mm.
Fortunately, we have the honor of being able to delve into that early on in our journey. Because
Yeah.
and without that, we wouldn't be having this conversation. I
Right.
mean, we really wouldn't. We'd be like, I don't know what you're talking about, man, but let's shift to bowling.
Yeah, right. And that's a
You know,
process that doesn't end, I'm even having a week this week of where I'm right back on my mirror of self-reflection again. It's like, oh man, I thought I was done with that. Jeez. Anyway,
yeah,
yeah,
but
so it
I mean,
just keeps going.
but yeah, you have to look at it with a sense of humor, though. I mean,
Mhm.
if you take it with a sense of humor, with a sense of being the willow in the wind, so to speak,
Yeah.
and allowing those lessons to come, because that that what we're looking for is spiritual maturation,
Hmm.
and I think the planet, Grandmother Earth, is going through her spiritual maturation.
As
She's
well.
about to move, she's moving into the Galactic Council. Um, you know, there's no doubt about that. I mean, that word's been coming down to me for
Hmm.
last 30 years,
Hmm. Hmm.
that this is going to happen. And so as she moves into that galactic family, her spiritual maturity is increasing dramatically. And
Hmm.
and and as it increases, we're going to feel the effects of that. You know,
Yeah,
we
how
we,
not?
we yeah, we can't you can't get away from that. And
Hmm.
so I think what we're trying to do in this podcast is to give people like a little clue into why they're going to be experiencing what they're experiencing, and to know that the anxieties and the things that they're feeling aren't bad.
Uh-huh.
Just stop buying into the gaslighting.
Yeah.
Stop buying into media trying to, if it bleeds, it leads.
Yeah.
Stop buying into, you know, all the stuff that people throwing at you to try to
Yeah.
get you to come over to their side.
Yeah.
You don't need
Just
to be on anybody's side, man. Just
well,
on your own.
yeah, because when you're upset, they're trying to upset you because when you're upset, you're easily manipulable. And when you're manipulable, then you're a great consumer, you're a great soldier, you're a great worker for whatever they think their cause is. And it doesn't, we've reached the end of sustainability on those ideas that you can just
Right.
exploit the planet and the people on it and the animals on it and nature, and just the age of exploitation is over one way or another,
Right.
where there are
Right.
humans left here or not. The age of exploitation is over. And if you want to go through this and come out on the other side, you're going to need to come to your own personal center, that place that you can be in the center of the storm and let the storm rage around you and not be manipulating you. And that requires the mirror of self-reflection and that whole journey of just getting tight and staying tight with the spirit of creation.
I
That could have
agree,
been a
100%.
poem.
Yeah, it was really, really good point. Here's a bit of a bombshell. Where I think the biggest leadership of what we're talking about is going to emerge from
Mm.
Africa.
Oh yeah, I'm totally down with that. I really think that now that they've been in South America, now that they've been so exploited, I saw a great cartoon where Africa and South America were completely hollowed out on the globe, and all of the land and all their stuff and everything they owned had been splucked back up on top of North America and Europe. It's like they just took all of it and everything that was good and just took it and put it up on the top of the planet. And I've actually wondered about that, watching these trains drive north, and I'm thinking, what is the planet ever going to start to just like blah, 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 get totally off balance?
Well, I've heard some speakers come out from Africa, and obviously we don't get a whole of that and a lot of that in the media, but I've seen
Yeah, we don't.
some of the leaders over there, the African leaders,
Mhm.
and they're incredibly articulate,
Yeah,
incredibly articulate. I
and
remember,
wise.
yeah, really wise, and just like,
Mhm.
we're not taking this shit anymore.
Right.
You know, one guy says, "How can you get up in the morning and go to work and build weapons to kill people? What's wrong with you
Yeah.
people?" Like that shit's over, man. It's over. I was like, God, just get after it, dude.
Yeah.
Um,
Keep it
you
going.
know, and, and I think the beauty of that continent is, there's a lot of, there's a lot of dark stuff over there for the very reason we're talking about,
Hmm. Hmm.
and um, but there's so much of it is natural, and it hasn't been paved over or developed or turned
Yeah.
into mishmash, and so there's a there's an essence there that is I think is really going to grow and grow and grow, as well as you're saying, like in South America, that people are going to become more educated by these folks to what's real and what needs to be happening.
Hmm. And if you're wondering how the planet's going to come back from all of this, it's really simple. The mechanisms are already there. Just stop killing her. Just stop
Yeah,
poisoning her. And
right.
she'll come back just fine. A little different, but she'll come back. She always
Well,
does.
I think that, we led this whole thing off by talking about the media said, the science saying if it bleeds, it leads. The
Hmm.
thing we got to understand, there's a lot of people out there that are doing great work that don't get noticed. They don't,
Yeah.
well, like, for instance,
Uh-huh.
we're the perfect example of that, actually. Now that I think about it, there's 6 or 7 people that are listening to the podcast, but no, but I think there's a lot of people out there, man, that are doing a lot of great work, and it on a scale over the last, say, 30 or 40 years, it's really grown dramatically. I mean,
Hmm.
dramatically.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, I mean, I first started going down to Mexico when I was 14, and I've been in a lot of different places in Mexico, and even there, I've watched as it's changed and the youth have come up and said, we're concerned about the ecology, we're concerned about the future, of what's going on. And I just saw recently where Belize and Mexico and I think Guatemala just created this huge natural park,
Uh-huh.
to protect the Mayan ruins down there and stuff. So there's a lot of good stuff happening, man. There really is, and the media in this country is not paying attention to it because they don't get paid to pay attention to it.
Right.
That's
It
the problem.
doesn't
They,
fit their agenda.
yeah, they're and everybody's like concerned about their country club membership and when if they're going to be able to buy their wife a new car. I mean,
Hmm.
this whole consumer thing is just. I think it's starting to run. I think people are starting to get. If they don't stop, they'll be stopped.
Uh-huh.
You know,
I
we're,
agree.
we're
And
going to find out
I think colonialism is over. It's run its course. We're not going to put up with
colonialism
that
is
bullshit anymore.
absolutely over.
And
Absolutely.
that's a tough thing because all of my history that I grew up with is colonial. My whiteness is colonial. My nation's history is colonial. The United States is built on slavery and genocide. So these are deep. There's that mirror of reflection again, because you got to go all the way to the bottom of your identity and everything you think you know about yourself if you want to become a healer on this planet.
Yeah. I mean, I know when I first went on my shamanic path. I mean, all my friends were, man, they were
Yeah,
like, they were gone.
yeah.
Because they couldn't understand what I was doing. They couldn't, and I couldn't either. But I had to follow. I was like, I'm going to follow this, man. I don't know why. Like I would
Hmm.
read the Castaneda books, and I think I
Hmm.
have no idea what he's talking about. But boy, this is really good.
Yeah. I want to try
You know,
that.
yeah, I'm going to try. Let's go. Let's go to see what this is. I mean, it spoke to my adventure. It spoke to my sense of being of discovery. And of course, I had later learned that I had lifetimes with that group
Hmm.
and that lineage. So I was getting memory recall through that. But in terms of my authenticity, I kept saying, I don't know what this is, but I got to follow it. I've got to follow it. I got to be true to myself. I got to figure out what this is. And it was like I was following somebody down a dark hall, and I didn't even know who that person was or why I was following them, but I knew I
Yeah,
had to.
yeah. Turns out
And
I was following myself.
yeah, exactly. You were following your higher self, and
Hmm.
of course, I did at the time. I had no idea what any of that was,
Right.
but you know, as the as I grew into it and I started realizing, okay, well, maybe I'm actually right. maybe, maybe this is working out somehow or
I-
another.
Is it possible
You
I
know,
belong here?
yeah, yeah. And that belonging is what sparked, I think, my acceptance of authenticity.
Hmm. Yeah.
And that belonging included being embraced by Grandmother Earth, being embraced by the universe,
Yes.
and feeling that like that like there's consciousness there and it knows me.
Yes. And I feel
It knows
safe
me.
here. And this is a big
Yes.
thing. I'd love to be able to transmit to the boys I work with that you're you're safe here. You are safe. You have an eternal soul, and a whole lot of weird things can happen to your body and in your environment, but you are essentially safe. And if I could just get that message out to people, I think that there would be a lot less anger, fear, strife, and violence on the planet because people wouldn't
Yeah,
be
absolutely.
acting out so badly.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I guess we have uh, the advantage of having been able to go out into nature
Mhm.
on purpose, you know, and 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 go do things that most normal people would think. I mean,
Mhm.
I remember, this. I mean, I put a lot of people out on ceremony, and I can tell you 90% of them are like, "What about the rattlesnakes?"
Mhm.
I go, "Well, the rattlesnakes know you're here. They're not going
Mhm.
to bother you."
Yeah, they don't like you.
You know, they don't like you. They don't want you. They don't want anything to do with you. You know.
Mhm.
Um, but that was getting them to say, "Hey, man, look, you're safe here because you're in ceremony, and every
Mhm. Yeah,
plant, every animal, everything out there knows that. They know you're here for ceremony.
yeah.
I mean, so let it happen." I remember one time, Swifter and I we were getting this tree out of the national forest. I don't want to go into that story, but anyway,
You might want to
it
leave
was
that
going to be
alone.
a Sundance tree,
Uh-huh.
and I'm sitting there. We were talking with him, and I said, this is interesting. I said, all these other trees are telling them, man, you're being chosen for a Sundance tree. That's amazing. You should really be honored. And he says, yeah, and he says they are saying that, and so the reality of being able to have a conscious level to understand that, yeah, these trees are talking to one another and I can
Mhm.
hear them,
Mhm.
and they
Mhm.
know who I am.
Mhm.
They know me.
Mhm.
Okay. This is
Yeah.
all happening.
Yeah.
They all know me, so I belong to this forest, not just by having done a forest bath there, but being aware of the fact that, hey, they know who I am,
Uh-huh.
and,
And that
and they,
on some level, everything is communicating with everything else.
exactly. Exactly. And so you find that you belong to a larger community that you didn't even know existed.
Right.
And it's amazing, man. It's just
It's
it's
so cool.
amazing. It's life changing.
Yeah, it is. It was for me anyway.
Yeah.
Well, sir, guess what?
At the end.
We have to sign off. Maybe we'll have a part three on this, or we'll just morph it into a new subject matter. I don't know how that's going to go, but I've enjoyed this quite a lot. And so I want to thank you and tell you that
Only
only the Great
the great
Spirit
spirit is
is
perfect.
perfect. So stop worrying. Okay, thank you,
Don't worry.
everybody. Come and visit
Bye.
us on earth-ems.org and you'll find out the rest of what we're doing. Thank you.